Hi, thank you for joining me today on this session for law reviews and journals about preemption checking on Westlaw. So a preemption check is essentially the process of determining whether another article has already been written on your topic. If you do not find such an article, your topic has not been preempted and you can proceed with your research and the concept that you are researching. So there are a couple of ways that you can check for a preemption. So the first place that I'm going to take you to is looking for a particular case. If perhaps this is what you were researching, or even a statute. So you can pull up the citation of the document that you were researching. So I'm going to pull up 145 SCT for the Supreme Court 931 Medical Marijuana Inc. versus Horn. So let's say that you were researching this particular issue that was discussed in this case about against the employee suing his employer in RICO and some loss of a job after a random drug test. If this is a case that you were interested in, or if there was a particular statute, perhaps the RICO statute, you could first go to citing references at the top with KeyCite and look under secondary sources in KeyCite to see what articles have already been written about this particular case. And so since this case was decided in April of this year, 2025, I can see that there are 40 potential articles, some law reviews, some Westlaw journals, a few American law reports, and some other documents in various other documents on Westlaw. So this is one way to look for being preempted is if you have a case or a statute and looking through KeyCite to see what has already been written on a particular topic. If I go back to the case itself, at the top of the screen, you will notice this little bell. This allows you to create a KeyCite alert entry for this particular case. So let's say I want to call this my law review article, preemption, and I can enter in a description, fall 2025, and it will give me the citation. And I need to enter in the site, the full site, 145 SCT 931. Now, one of the things here is you want to select what kind of content you want to come from Westlaw. So maybe you just want to know if anything cites to it, references it. You're not necessarily concerned about the history, but you might be if anything happens to this particular case. But you definitely want to keep track of anything that cites to this particular case. I will click continue. Again, you will see my email here. You would enter in yours, why you were getting this, LR, article, why you're going to get this. I never select full text of documents just simply because it may be a large attachment. So I just get the list of citations and then I can take the time to go in and read them. Click continue, and then you can select how often you want to get this information from Westlaw, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. You would likely select weekly. If you were working on this article just the semester, you can tell Westlaw even what time to send you each week, and you can even enter in an end date, the day your article is due, the week before your final draft is due to your editor. And then you can save your alert, and I will now start getting a message about this particular case every week, and I will be notified if anything cites to this particular case. Okay, the next place that I want to go to are to secondary sources under content types. And I will click content types and then click on secondary sources. The next place that you want to go to are your law reviews and journals to see if anyone has written anything about your particular topic. And so this allows you to search throughout all 1,000 plus law reviews and journals that are out there. I have already pulled up a search. And so my search is cannabis or marijuana within the same paragraph as screening or testing and employer. And I want to see how many articles are out there that have this potential search. This is a pretty broad search. It's just cannabis or marijuana within the same paragraph as either screening or testing and your employer. And here there are 961 articles that have this somewhere within the text of the publication here. And I can go through, and one of the things that I can do is sort by date to see what are the most recent articles that have been written on this subject. I can see here that there was one this summer, particularly for teachers regulating their employees and so on. So I could kind of look through. Now, one of the things that I did want to also reference when you're doing a preemption check, as I'm looking through this, there are several, recently within the past year or so that have talked about cannabis or marijuana at work and perhaps screening and testing by employers. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't write about it as well. What I like about doing this search and potentially for you is that you can look through to see what has already been written on a particular topic and how you can develop that or how you can put a new spin on the issue. Maybe you are in opposition to what this one person has to say and you want to write about the opposite perspective. So this is another way to look at it and to try to get new ideas as well. I can also look maybe in the last 3 years and see what has written about, drug testing by employers and, how has this evolved, particularly since medical marijuana has been, legalized in quite a few jurisdictions. So, what does that mean for employees if they are using it for a legitimate purpose? Maybe that is something that you want to address. So this is just one of the easiest ways to also look through that. You can see that my search was pretty simple, and I also encourage you to keep your search simple as well. I had just a couple of synonyms here: cannabis, marijuana. I could have added drugs, anything else, testing, drug test, drug screening, employer, company, anything else that you might want to include, add just a couple of synonyms and try different ones. Maybe I could change the paragraph to perhaps a sentence connector to see, what that result might be. You can always see all of your terms and connectors by clicking on the advanced link over on the right side of the submit button to get ideas of how you can expand your search. But I always say try just a few different terms and just a couple of connectors. If you make it overly complicated or make it too specific, you might not get any results and think, oh, well, I'm good. There's been nothing on this topic, when perhaps maybe there has been, but your search was really, really specific. I'm going to go back to the search result that I just did with the date restriction. And now, actually, let me clear those results. So that is just simply running a search in all law reviews and journals for your topic and seeing if there is anything on your topic this way. Again, keep your search simple and try to see kind of generally what is out there, and then use the filters over on the left side, such as within the last 3 years or within the last year itself, again, depending on the parameters that your publication allows for you to research on a particular issue, especially if it's kind of either a developing issue or something that has been ongoing. Maybe there are new ways to examine a particular topic and you would be permitted to research that way. So that is preemption checking. Again, pulling up a case, looking at citing references and secondary sources. You can also do that with a statute as well, and then running your search with your search terms in secondary sources and law reviews and journals to see what articles are actually already out there on a particular subject. And thank you so much. And if you have any questions, please email me at any time. Thanks so much.